You are welcome to another episode of LFN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. While the federal government prosecutors chose to champion the fight against R. Kelly, rendering the allegations against him criminal in nature, when it came to evidence gathering and presentation, the cases against him were treated as civil. There are several differences between civil and criminal cases, and one of the most important being the level of evidence accuracy required. By law, when investigating civil cases, presumptive evidence where inferences are made may be acceptable, but when dealing with criminal cases, sheer accuracy becomes a prerequisite. The evidence presented against R. Kelly therefore needed to be as accurate as possible and leaving no reasonable doubt. Many who have followed the cases against R. Kelly from the day his legal battles started have mentioned a strange pattern they have observed. According to their analysis, while the majority of stories told by the supposed victims may sound quite compelling for one to sympathize and blindly believe that R. Kelly wronged them, comparing with evidence presented to back up their claims will reveal a disconnect between the two, quickly turning the claims into mere presumptions and nothing beneficial for the criminal courts to use against the R&B King. This is likely the reason all previous cases filed by the women against R. Kelly have been predominantly civil in nature, largely because it has been their word against his kind of argument which is categorized as presumptive, and would not suffice to support any sort of criminal charges. Indeed, if by evidence preponderance, the plaintiff only succeeds in showing that the evidence presented is only proximately true, but with no real conclusiveness beyond reasonable doubt, such evidence should not lead to a conviction in the criminal court. Before a defendant can be convicted and punished in a criminal court, the evidence presented against him must prove beyond reasonable doubt, ticking all the boxes and all facts proven before guilt is established. Most of the claims which were made by R. Kelly's accusers during their testimonies will comfortably fall in the category of presumptive evidence with no real conclusive proof whatsoever. When R. Kelly was slapped with forced labor charges with regard to Faith Rogers, for example, it was on the basis of her claims that this one time she went to his studio room to get intimate with him, as she had been doing multiple times at her own will. She found a gun lying on his table. Even though she did not say anything about him trying to use it on her or threatening her with it, the judge and her jury of 12 decided to simply rename their usual sexual encounters they both enjoyed as forced labor, and subsequently managed to find him guilty for the same, yet none of them can prove beyond reasonable doubt that this gun even existed in the first place. The government ought to know that they cannot prove a criminal case with only a single story told by the plaintiff with no real evidence to prove that this is how these events transpired. Simply listening to a woman say "I was forced" does not prove beyond reasonable doubt that she was indeed forced. For some reason, however, the New York judge Ann Donnelly and her group prefer to rule against R. Kelly in a criminal court basing in rumors such as these as opposed to facts. If this is what they wanted to achieve, they should have advised that the cases be filed in a civil court. At the end of the day, it's not strange to hear many people ask why the government and the entities that stood behind it, and that were to gain immensely from R. Kelly's takedown, would prefer to pursue criminal charges and not a civil lawsuit. The answer to this is rather simple and clear. Almost every single complaint against R. Kelly had already been dealt with in the civil court, and settlements made for the women who targeted extorting him. Meaning refiling the same cases was going to become an obvious case of double jeopardy. When these charges were presented in the federal criminal court, the district attorney could argue that it was not the accusers anymore seeking redress but the people of Illinois and Brooklyn. The government also knew well that the women they presented as underage were actually way above the ages of consent with reference to the state laws, but when tried in the criminal court would be along the borderline of 17 to 18, which would make it a lot easier for them to manipulate these records and claim R. Kelly targeted underage girls. In fact, until today, it's not clear that any of the women presented as victims in New York had been below the age of 18. Azriel, who almost qualifies, moved along with an ID that showed she was 18, and we recently learned that her mother was a major player in luring R. Kelly to be with her, and coaching her to lie to him she was of age and ready to mingle. The government therefore had no choice but to report criminal charges, for which the evidence they managed to present remained insufficient to prove beyond reasonable doubt that R. Kelly could have been guilty of any alleged crimes. According to Maurice Hunter, in such a scenario, the most appropriate thing the court should have done was to refer the case back to the civil court and throw it out of the criminal court. Considering the case is largely based on hearsay and not concrete evidence, it was not suited for the U.S. criminal court, which is a reserve for handling real crime backed up by conclusive evidence, and not the he say she say that is predominant with this particular case. It's clear these guys so badly wanted to destroy R. Kelly's career but had no leverage to take him to court. Nevertheless, they forced their way by disregarding the nature of accusations which were suited for a civil court and forcing their way into the criminal court where evidence precision is paramount. We can say the government prosecutors and the district attorney's offices together with the DOJ have succeeded in showing how incompetent they are when it comes to interpreting the laws, and how corrupt they can be when it comes to handling high-profile defendants. There are certain facts about the case against R. Kelly one would have never imagined could happen here in America, but here we are witnessing the impossible occur. According to Tone Cobb, this government has proved to be the most corrupt organization in the history of our nation. Why do they target black men with power? They feel we are a threat, to be honest, and if we could only stop beefing with one another, we will be too powerful for this world. My brother is on his way home and there is no doubt about this. As for Jennifer Bonjean, we have to take our hats off to her. Thank you, JB. I always said Robert is a good dude and you have made it possible for the whole world to see this. How our government prefers to have good people behind bars while they cherish real criminals only because they are connected to the top government seats. We demand justice for R. Kelly immediately. Enough is enough, just let him come back home, for it's now clear that the law was broken in the government's attempt to destroy his career. If you wish to take part in a live interview discussing any of these topics, let us know by sending an email to sashalfnmedia@gmail.com for scheduling. Thank you for watching today's video, a production of LFN Media, giving you another perspective of issues at hand. We make it our business to keep you updated with the truth amidst the cloud of lies the media wants you to believe. It is therefore important to subscribe to this channel, hit the bell icon and allow all notifications so that you don't miss out whenever we publish a new video.